We're going to start with opening statements, and Saul Gonzalez will be first. 1 minute for an opening statement.
Good afternoon, everyone here. I really appreciate you for being here today. My name is Saul Gonzalez, and I'm running for City Council Place 2. I would like to tell you a little bit about myself. I was born and raised in San Marcos, and my parents were born and raised in San Marcos as well back in 1924. I have 4 kids. I've been married for 28 years, 4 kids, 3 that graduated Texas State University, 1 that's currently in Texas State University. I'm employed at Central Texas Medical Center in San Marcos, and I've been employed there for 25 years. I have served in several boards and commissions. I served in ZBOA, Zoning Boards of Adjustments. I have served in the Drainage Advisory Board, and I have served on Planning and Zoning. I think total years of my service on boards and commissions is about 10 years. With that being said, I'd like to add a little bit to, because I don't think I'm going to get a closing statement tonight, am I?
Yes.
Oh, we are? Well, I have always served this community, and I like to continue serving this community. I think I have a good serving record, and I think I would do you well by serving the City Council. Thank you.
Hi, I'm still Shane Scott. This will be my 4th time to run or be in the same room, do the same thing, and thank you again for inviting us. Again, same story. I came to San Marcos as a veteran from the Air Force, came here to get my degree in criminal justice. I received it. Couldn't make a living here, started a company, and had to start a company in Austin. But I stayed here in the community the entire time, raising my children. Many know my daughter Shelby Scott, graduated valedictorian, got full ride at UT. I didn't pay a dime. I'm very happy about that. And I have a new 8-month-old, Sadie, and Facebook. She was saying it as well. I have a vested interest in this community, and I always will. I do a lot of fun different things, so I don't have a lot of time. Sometimes I come off as just straight to the point. Sometimes that comes off as arrogant, but I'm really not. I do movies. I've done like Office Space, Spy Kids. The list goes on. Actually, I was in the Dominican Republic in March for a month doing Vin Diesel's new XXX movie. It comes out in January. But I came back here to run, because this community is so important to me. We're slowly getting pushed out of our community by the cost and price. Not karaoke night?
Hi y'all, my name is Lisa Marie Compolette. I'm running for the Place 2 spot, and I appreciate everybody coming out tonight. My theme for this year is flooding first, fiscal conservatism, and foundations for future generations. I have 30 years of activism work here in our community. I was Sector 1 Neighborhood Commissioner, and we got 3 ordinances passed. One to force landlords to fix moldy apartments. The second one to notify our students and renters that they live in a flood zone. And the third was a smart meter opt-out program. I am the Bell Buckle Award winner this year for the citizen who participated for 2 years in the online mixer, attending the Code Rodeo think tank, going to all the public hearings, sitting down with city staff, and filing a robust collection of open records reports. I was also a neighborhood commissioner for Sector 1. I was also precinct chair for my political party, arts commissioner who worked on the subcommission for the arts plan. I appreciate your consideration this year, and God bless San Marcos.
Thank you. Appreciate your patience in juggling the microphone. It is a little bit awkward, and I second the city council having some more microphones. So the first lead question goes to Saul Gonzalez, and that question is, what is the most important issue you will address should you be elected to city council?
The most important issue to me is going to be flooding. I think sometimes we have to go and when we get developers coming into San Marcos, they bring their own engineers to tell us everything's going to be fine, and then we get our city engineers to do the same thing. I like to go outside boundaries and contract a civil engineer to get an unbiased opinion if this area is going to flood or not. That's what I would be, one of the most concerns I have if I would, if I'm on the city council. Thank you.
Same question.
Flooding is definitely, as we've seen, a very important issue, and I agree with Sal on that as well. But one of my focuses that I see slowly deteriorating is our family units that are here. We're slowly getting pushed out by the community, from other communities that are actually wealthier than we are, from Austin, that are buying our houses for a lot more money than we can afford and pushing the poorer community out. To me, that's very important. One of the reasons why I stayed here in San Marcos was the family nature of this community. It's very important to have growth. It's very important to have jobs, for our students and our people that live in this community. And I supported 1,500 since I've been on city council. But family still is the number one reason that I choose to be on city council and try to run and be part of it as well.
In addition to being proactive with development, offering incentives for things like paper box or rubberized sidewalks or green industry, obviously flooding is my priority because that's the first and the anthem of my key elements. Both of the events to my right have both voted on developments, whether it's a development that's a student housing development or a business, in which residents have claimed that they have very severe concerns about flooding. I am the candidate that actually sits down with your city staff members. I met 3 times before one of the most recent developments was planned, who files open records requests. As you all know, the finalized official FEMA flood maps will not be available until summer of 2017. So that within my ideation, we should be very mindful of these developments. I've also suggested things like emergency safety cutoff valves so that families can stop the sewage from coming into their house, or even retaining walls. We also need to be able to make sure that we as citizens have sound optics and trust in our elected officials, that they are not rubber stamping developments, that our people who own houses here will be flooded out. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Gonzalez, you have 30 seconds rebuttal.
Yes, Lisa Marie claims that I voted for several developments. I'd like to know which ones. And by the way, there's no way we can hold back a development and wait for 2017 to wait for the new flood maps. I mean, everything in San Marcos has come to a stop. We just can't do that. Now, what she's talking about, I think, is the HEB project. It was not in the floodplain, and it was not in the floodway. I want to make sure that everybody here understands that. Thank you.
Second question, Mr. Scott. Is promoting healthier lifestyle choices for its residents an appropriate role for the city council?
Lifestyle choices, wow, that's kind of broad. No, actually, I don't think lifestyle choices are city council's responsibility. I think our responsibility are roads, security, utilities. Things I focus on are rate stabilization funds, so your rates quit going up, and use the income that the city gets, which we make a lot of money, and keep your rates down. Also, I propose on homestead exemption on city taxes, which we have county, but do it in a city as well. They would lower our taxes, which I pushed for city council in 2015. They didn't want to do it, therefore this year your taxes went up. One other reason why I'm running.
Actually, back to the other question, is one development. It is on the Razor's Edge of the development, and that water is being discharged into the flood zone. That is unequivocally true. I stated one development. As far as answering your question, my track record is in parallel. It's making sure that the health and human safety of our community is protected. I'm the one that talked to the city staff that had them redirect all those toxic air particulates from the demolition downtown, the 9-story. It was going through the historic district into all of our houses. And after talking with city staff, they rerouted that. I also was the one that discovered the hydrogen sulfide leak when Capstone Cottage tapped into the aquifer, poisoning everyone from Craddock out down to Belvin. All of us were vomiting. I'm the one that discovered that, and the city put a halt to it. My track record is in parallel when it comes to being a watchdog for developments here in our community, whether it's air particulates or smells that are toxic, or even things that discharge into the recharge zone. There's lots of opportunities for people to get involved in our community, working with at-risk youth and pairing them up with mentors who are small business owners as well as companies here in our community. That is something that I would like to shepherd. I'd also like to work with having retired citizens work with students and them take narrative stories and put those in the public library. Thank you.
No rebuttal. Third question. Just a moment, we're having a microphone check.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Hello? Yes.
So we'll cover. All right. This question starts with Ms. Capoletta. And the question is, what changes will the adoption of Code SMTX, the proposed rewrite of the city's land development code, have on growth and development in the city?
Well, y'all know that Belt Buckle Award winner. I'm not going to let that one go right after working 2 years. There's a lot of things that aren't changing that I wish would change. I wish we had a tree board just like the city of Austin, where it's very laborious to tear down a 500-year-old tree. I wish we had required shovel tests, but I am very happy that my continual pleas for human remains of Native Americans have now become part of the greater narrative. So you'll see on the dais members of the city council actually in the HEB deal requiring them to have a shovel test because of my hard work. We have things like areas of stability and buffer zones, and that's very important to make sure that we don't have development right on the razor's edge of where we all live. I'm very concerned about things like discharge into the aquifer recharge zone, or the problems that we have with, I don't know, demolition dust. So as someone who's worked to look at the code, we still have some revisions to make, and I would encourage every member who's here in the audience to go online and put in your comments. They're still taking those comments, and your input is key right now, because once we close the book on that, we're going to be done with it.
Thank you. Mr. Gonzalez, same question.
Test 1, 2, 3. Regarding the SMART code, I have a lot of concerns with it. There's a lot of good stuff in it, but there's some other stuff that's not so good. For an example, on Guadalupe Street, they're proposed to put some high-density buildings, or whatever you want to call them. And I have a problem with that. We got well-established neighborhoods right adjacent to that, and that would ruin those neighborhoods, in my opinion. But going back to Lisa's question, I'd like her to name all the developments I voted for. She claims that I have a record of voting for developers. I'd like to know what they are. Thank you.
Mr. Scott?
What was the question again? I'm sorry.
The question is, what changes will the adoption of Code SMTX, the proposed rewrite of the city's land development code, have on growth and development within the city?
Well, first of all, that's more of a roadmap and a direction that people have said that they want to go. One of the problems with it is there's a very small minority of people that actually help put that together. There's not a lot, the masses. So you have to be very careful just rubber stamping and saying, yeah, let's go with that. Actually, you should look at it and see how it fits for each situation. You should never, ever just assume or give up on something that would bring so much more. Matter of fact, if we did, things like Amazon wouldn't have happened here in San Marcos, which is very important. So it needs to be looked at as more as a roadmap and a direction as opposed to an absolute.
30-second
To
rebuttal.
answer your question a second time, Mr. Gonzalez, I stated that it was the most recent vote that you made. That's the one I'm referencing, the one of which all of the toxins from a parking lot will be discharged into Purgatory Creek, which, as you all know, floods. And once again, the official finalized FEMA flood maps will not be until 2017. To say that we're looking at the flood of record is not actually, it's not accurate. Because we've had lots of, all that once was green space, it's all now concrete. The other thing about the Code Rodeo that's important to note is thank you, Ethics Commission. Now we're going to have more oversight on those consultants, because we spent lots of money, and I've got oodles of open records requests at my website, lmc4sanmarcos.com, that you can review.
Thank you. We now have audience questions. Again, 1 minute for the answer to the audience questions. The audience members, you have 30 seconds for your question.
Hey, y'all. Ben Conley again. After the biggest flood in history last year, we had the hottest summer ever, the hottest El Nino. So it was inevitable that we were going to have another flood, and it was around this time that we did. What would you have done to try to mitigate the damage, and what will you do if you're elected to stop it in the future?
Who's going to answer? I'll answer.
I'll start here with Mr. Gonzalez and we'll work our way down.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the first part of that question, please?
I was just, kind of reviewing that we had the biggest flood in history, and after that we had the hottest summer ever, the hottest El Nino in the Pacific Ocean. So we had another flood of record in October at my place. So I was wondering what you would do to stop the damage.
That's a good question. That's a great question, thank you. First of all, I cannot stop Mother Nature. What's going to happen is going to happen. Second of all, what would I do after the fact? I would probably get with city staff and make sure we prepared before something like that takes place, and make sure all the elements are in place. Like that, we can help all the people that are going to need the help. Thank you.
My focus would be on diversion so it doesn't happen again. We've had floods many, many times in San Marcos, and we really need to find another way to divert or capture, these floods when they happen. I think in Jake Pickle's time, they were talking about some dam capture up in the Wiggly area. It's 44 million people turned it down. Now it looks pretty reasonable to do something like that. Also, if you catch 35 as it breaks south and go through the farmland, you could actually route it southbound around all the houses back, south of town without causing any flooding in anybody's neighborhood. But you still have the San Marcos River to mess with, so there's a lot to it. The diversion or capture is probably the best way I can think of.
Well, I actually spoke out against the Woods development, and I've spoken out against other developments, such as the Capstone Cottage, which flooded just most recently. So if you take a look at the track record with me and the two men to my right, I have consistently, every development in which residents have expressed concerns about flooding, I've been one of those residents that's spoken out at citizen comments. And I don't just roll up and give a speech. I actually sit down and talk with city staff. I file open records reports, and I ask them to interpret that data. Additionally, I say, why not tear down that wall? Why not tear down the woods? It's created flooding. We've all had concerns about that. The voters unequivocally stated that they wanted that to be parkland. Now, I know the city council is working on this. This is something that us as residents have expressed concerns about. Also, I think it's important for us to be mindful of CIP funding when we talk about all these improvements across town. That CIP funding should go to Blakeo Gardens to make sure that there's appropriate drainage, not all these bells and whistle projects for sidewalks around town.
Okay, do we have another audience question? We had one working mic down there, do we?
Dan Lyons again. May not be the sharpest knife in the drawer, but for the life of me, I can't figure out how Code SMTX will not infringe on the rights of property owners. Y'all are kind of acting like it's just some sort of suggestion that we should build high-density housing here and put park space over there. To me, we don't live in that kind of world. We live in a world where, in order to get that sort of outcome, you have to be able to tell people what they can and can't do. Could y'all explain to me how that's going to work?
Well, I can. Okay, sure. Yes, ma'am.
The question was, how does it interfere with your personal property rights? Is that what you're asking? I'm very huge on keeping the government out of your personal property rights. As a council member, I fought tooth and nail to try to let you be your own contractor. It took me 2 years to get that passed. I thought it was a good old boy system, and I thought there was no reason why your home that you grew up or you raised or built, you didn't have to be the person that tells the person what work needs to be done instead of having somebody else pay to do that for you. So I pushed and got that through. Property rights are very important to me, and less government in your rights is a big key thing for me. So I'll always support that.
Well, that's awesome, you're for property rights, but where were you during the Laura incident when we had a private landowner whose family dates back to the 1920s paying cash for a piece of property in which the city threatened eminent domain? I was there, and in the process, we actually saved 7 trees in the process. So if we want to talk about someone who has stood strong against eminent domain, the threat of eminent domain, I'm the candidate that's been talking to the residents in Victory Gardens, as well as my friend Kathy Laura and all that she's endured. Also, I think it's important to note that if you have concerns about land rights, now is the time to be participating in the Code Rodeo process. Put that data down on the digital online, show up to those meetings, send those emails to city staff, because all of that is documented. We may not get our way every time, but at least we can say we tried. At least it's documented what our concerns are, and as citizens, that's all we can do. As a member of the dais, you can count on me to stand strong against eminent domain. I'm the only one up here who has stood up for the Laura family and has stood strong against eminent domain here in our community.
On property rights, I also believe in property rights. I'm really concerned about the development that might go up on Guadalupe Street that would affect those neighbors and the real negative impact. And I wouldn't support things like that. Having a well-established neighborhood and then having right adjacent to that a big skyscraper, I wouldn't support things like that. Thank you.
Rule of law. Are there any other audience questions?
I'd like to address this question, particularly to Mr. Scott here. Why are you so dismissive and place in low priority race relations? Have you ever considered that if you don't have good race relations in the city, you may not have a city at all? And that's what you had. Why do you place such low priority on good race relations and are so dismissive of good race relations? If you don't have good race relations in a city, you may not have a city at all.
Sure, and I completely agree with you. Except I've lived here in San Marcos for about 30 years, and we haven't had race relation problems since I've been here that I've seen. And I've been in this community in all different sectors of the community. And our community in general, why I live here, is very much one of those reasons, because we have a very safe community. People are very respectful at the times of the election, but they're very respectful at times of the community and the people in it. We always have been. I'm a big advocate of things that are going to bring our community closer together. Parades. Why aren't we having a 4th of July parade? And then a picnic following. You know, we have a great fireworks show. This is the kind of stuff in community and family that I'm talking about. It's critical. But to answer your question, I'm not dismissive of it. I just don't see it. And if it's brought to my attention, I would address it accordingly. Thank you.
The notion of ethnicity, race, class, and gender has been very important to me. My graduate degree, I focused on Black feminist theory, and I've actually worked with a lot of at-risk youth. Some of the young gangbangers, they were about this size when I was working in grad school, and now they're all grown up. And so I've actually took them into my house and taught them computer skills. I teach cultural awareness for corporate industry in the private sector, the oil and gas industry, electric utility. I also teach cultural awareness with my students. Like I said earlier, I'd love to see an opportunity for our seasoned citizens who've lived through race issues here in our community when we did have separate but equal movie theaters, do a little discussion with the younger kids and have a dialogue about what all they've endured and how they became better people, and be a mentor to those young kids. And then those narratives, kind of like the StoryCorps, it would end up in our public library as testimony to how we work together in our community to foster understanding.
No, I don't have very much to say, to add to that. I don't think we have very many racial issues in San Marcos. I've been walking from house to house, and I met some wonderful people, not only the Hispanic side, but the north side and the west side. I mean, common folks who tell me to come in and sit down and just talk for a little bit. And I was really surprised that it's all over San Marcos. We're very privileged to live in a town like this. And I don't think we have very many issues with racial.
We're ready for closing statements, and I would like if Mr. Compion and Ms. Pruitt are willing, as soon as we finish the closing statements with this group, give you a chance. I cut you off earlier, and it's my fault and my apologies. So if you're willing, I'll give you a chance when this group finishes to do closing statements. Okay? Starting with, well, let's start down here with Ms. Campbell.
Well, I appreciate y'all being here for the debate tonight, and I have a website. It's LMC, the number 4, San Marcos. And at my website, I have a series of what I call Coppola Chats. And they're extended video narratives of things that I think are facing our community. Things like affordable housing and ways that we can solve that. I've lived in almost every neighborhood in this community, from Dunbar to Victory Gardens. Now I live on Belvin. I've lived on Harvey Street. And so I think there's a lot of unique ideas that I have that are grounded in scientific testimony. I'm also a member of the press. So when the flooding hit Woodlands, my videos went viral. Even Al Jazeera picked them up, which showed the causation between the flooding and that development. And y'all know I've blogged these things every week. So I'm not just the candidate that showed up one day and decided to file. I'm the candidate that's out every week, showing up to citizen comments and speaking humbly as a citizen to the members of the dais. And then I will do investigative reports. And y'all know I sit down once a week with city staff, right? And I file open records requests. This is a daily workflow for me. It's not just a candidacy for me. It's something that I've been passionate about since I was 19 years old. I'm 48 years old. Thank you for your time, and God bless San Marcos.
Well, thank you. Well, like I said earlier, I was born and raised in San Marcos, and you know, we have a lot of issues here. One of them is employment. We don't have good employment in San Marcos. I have 3 kids that graduated Texas State University, and there's no jobs here, none whatsoever. Affordable homes, we don't have it. What we need is good paying jobs. That's what we need. In order for us to do that, I think we ought to get together with the university and our school district. Let's work together, because we're in it together. A company looks for a good place to live, a good town, a good university. And they also look for a good school district. And we don't have the best school district in San Marcos. I would like to get together with them once every 3 months or so, and let's work together. Let's make this work for all of us. We all want to stay here. Our college kids want to stay here. My kids want to stay here. Our grandkids want to stay here. And your kids want to stay here. Thank you very much.
Well, like I said, this is number 4 for me. It sounds very similar. And nothing really, as far as my meaning to run again, has changed about me. I don't have a website, because that's not what I'm about. I'm about the community first. I don't make decisions based on individual interest groups, only about what's good for the community as a whole. That's my motto. It makes it really simple to vote. If it affects everybody equally and fairly, then I look into it and I think it's supportive. We have so many different issues that come up that keep attacking people. But more and more, the most important thing is family. If we don't stay bonded as family in our community and do all the things, whether it's our housing, whether it's our celebrations, and keep people together, this community is going to fall apart anyway. So those are the pushes that I am 100% behind and will continually support, and will, for the last 5 years, I've always stood behind. So I'd appreciate your vote. God bless everybody.